Hey guys, just introducing a new podcast that I'm launching with my friend Pranav. This really started, the idea of the podcast really started when I quit my job last year. I went from a corporate employee to an independent entrepreneur, and I realized the freedom that I can get because of this major shift in my life, and the kind of leverage that entrepreneurship provides to everybody. My question was like, why more people aren't doing it, right? And I reached out to my friend Pranav. He's a social scientist. We've been having so many deep conversations for such a long time, and we thought that the whole idea of work, of how society treats work and money, and how we as humans derive meaning from our life, and how have we come here, right from the hunter gatherer days when we're primitives, and now we are more civilized cultured humans. How have we evolved all the social codes around our lives, that the codes that we live by, right? And we wanted to do a podcast or have a series of conversations around these interesting, like, big questions of life. So we started recording these episodes, and started having these conversations and recording these episodes. And what you're going to see, the first series of episodes is about the nature of work and money and meaning, and how society is structured around this. And we're going to do more series on different topics like education and so on and so forth. Like, we have a bunch of topics that will go on. So feel free to, so enjoy the show. Feel free to drop in your comments, suggestions of how we can improve it. What topics would you like to talk about? Do let us know how what is your opinion about these complex ideas, and we'd be happy to happy to have deeper, longer conversations with you around these interesting topics. The only thing that we know for sure is that, like, there is no one single answer for anything, but the only way to get to any answer is through good, constructive, deeper, reflective conversations. Right? Not something that you can read in a newsletter or in a tweet, but rather like long conversations. And like, this podcast on YouTube felt like the right medium to be able to do this. So see you inside. Have a nice time.
Hello and welcome to the Social Code podcast. So this is me, Ayush. I'm with my friend Pranav, and we've been having conversations, deep conversations about the big questions in life for a long time. We thought this is the right time, probably where we should actually start recording them for anybody who might be interested or who might not be interested, maybe even just for us to look back on these conversations. Right, Pranav. What do you think? And welcome.
Oh, yes. Oh, welcome everybody. Thanks, Ayush. This has been a long time coming. We've been
Yeah.
discussing about how the world works and these things for a long time. And given your recent move, or rather, your recent quitting of the corporate job, gave us a
Yes.
good set of conversations. And
Yes.
I think what I would like to do, is figure out how the world works in the context of small problems. So, like,
Right.
I am curious to know end of how did you come to the conclusion that you should move away from a very comfortable uh, corporate job,
Right.
and how did you even figure out going about it? But mostly, let's focus on what does your life look like now.
Yes. It's so much better. It's so much more fulfilling, right? I have control over my calendar, over my time, over what I'm doing, when I'm doing, who I'm working with. Before that, I didn't have control over that. Plus I have a financial cushion for 2 to 3 years while I'm figuring this out. I'm still making some money, not as much as I used to, but I'm still making enough to just keep my day-to-day running expenses covered. So uh, and and with that, I get the freedom to do whatever I want. And you spoke about why did I take. So I kept asking myself, like, why am I doing the work I'm doing, while I was in the job. And this question kept coming back up, that why do we work at all as a society, and it is just a nagging question to me, that why are we working? Are we working for status, for power, for money, for what? And all of those things, I don't matter to me as much, probably. So at some point, I could find that balance where I didn't have to work so much, especially the amount of work that we do these days, in our corporate jobs is just humongous. We don't have to work so much. I realize that if you just want to live a stable, balanced life,
Mm-hmm.
at least that's what I came up to the conclusion. And I think gradually we'll see a lot more people do it. Eventually, I want to see a day where all of society does this. Where everyone only works the minimum amount that they have to, that they must, and they don't have to slog those 60-hour weeks. And of course, this will come with the trade-off of not getting bigger houses and bigger cars, and faster and stylish cars and watches and stuff like that, luxury watches. At least that's how I've thought about it.
So that's
Yeah.
that's super fascinating. So I think your story is quite inspiring, that you were able to figure out how much of a cushion you need and then transition into, and I'm sure that you've had conversations elsewhere where you talk specifics about the journey. But I want to pick out one piece that you mentioned, that you hope that everybody gets there. Tell me more about that. Like the idea that everybody gets to a place where they have the freedom to work a few number of hours to get their basic needs met, and the rest of the time they can work on things that they like, or
Yes.
essentially not slog. Do you
Right.
think that is possible? Do you think part of figuring out the social code is that this has worked for you?
Yes.
But if everybody does what you've been doing, is that even possible? Like as a society, like that's what I'm like now curious about. So tell me more about why we. Perhaps a good place to start would be like, why do we work? What's the point of it? And perhaps begin with first principles, like dive back old school first principles. What does work look like? Why do we do it? And then how did we end up in a place where everybody is essentially working or slogging away 80 hours a week, not because they want to most of the times. So
Right. So
thoughts, yeah.
yeah, so I thought a lot about this, and yeah, starting from the very beginning is probably the right place, I would say. So because I'm a big fan of like books like *Sapiens*, and *Guns, Germs, and Steel*, and stuff like that, which go into history a bit. Of course, I mean there are questions and controversies, but yeah. I'm a big fan of prehistory, basically, of hunter-gatherer, hunter-gatherer societies, and how we evolved to become the social animals that we have become. Basically, all humans are animals, right? But we are today. We think we are better than animals because we live in a society and we live longer, and we we are on top of the food chain, and we are consuming the planet, right? That's for some other day. But yeah, so that's why I love to go back to prehistory and go back to our hunter-gatherer days. And I think if we dial it back, I think back in the day we used to work only for survival. Just you get up in the morning, you hunt a boar, you gather a few berries, you come back, you cook them, and you eat it with your tribe, and your day ends. And then you wake up again the next morning, and the same grind starts again. And what you're doing is you're working, probably most of the day or a large part of the day, you're working to find food for that day. And you're not able to transfer that work, or you're not as productive, probably as efficient, because whatever you're hunting is going to decay and degrade, and you won't be able to eat it the next day. So that's why I think hunter-gatherer societies, like the most primitive humans, basically worked for one day, and just every day they kept doing the same thing. And of course, the two primary things that they cared about was physical security, like not getting hunted themselves, and not starving. Just making sure that they get enough food for one day. So yeah, that's how I think of. That's how it all started. That's how this whole concept of work started. Concept of work was there back in the day. I don't think that they. Yeah, what do you think?
So perhaps I think that makes sense. I like the fact that you're simplifying very complex things into working for physical security, not getting killed,
Yes.
and working for
Yes.
food, that is survival. So those two buckets make tremendous sense to me, and the idea that there is a lot of, because you cannot store food, only if you had refrigerators back then. Because we cannot store food, there is uncertainty, and that is why you come back to hunting the next day and making
Right.
sure that you
Right.
survive the next day.
Right.
Perhaps a couple more buckets that might make sense there, and looking for how you think about it, is the idea of uh, child rearing or housework. I'm guessing that it would be meaningful to say that even the earliest humans, being social animals, lived in small
Mhm.
tribes,
Mhm. Mhm.
and big chunk of the folks there, perhaps it was divided by gender.
Mhm.
That really isn't the issue here. Was like a substantial part of the tribe was focused in the upbringing of the younger generation, or taking care of people who are old now and cannot go
Sure.
out hunting,
Sure. Sure.
or are hurt. So like, do you consider that as in your understanding of work? And the reason I bring this up is like, if you're trying to go at it and building first principles, I'm trying to figure out what do people spend time on, and this is a part
Mm.
of human activity,
Yes.
survival, uncertainty, and essentially generational, like passing on, making sure that your community and tribe keeps on surviving. So even if at some
Right.
day you become old, there is a new generation of people who have now
Hmm.
called your tribe.
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
think that is
Hmm.
work, or,
Hmm.
I'm happy to keep it aside for now,
Hmm.
but in the uh, service of fullness from first
Yes.
principles, do you
Yes.
consider
Yes.
that as work?
I would say yes. I would
Mm-hmm.
say basically that's the thing, that at that moment in history we didn't have distinctions of what is our professional life and what is our personal life, what is our work life and what is our home life. every
Mm-hmm.
every life was life, and everything that we did can be categorized as work. Child rearing especially was hard work. First the 9 months of being pregnant for a woman, and then after the birth of the child, because those are the most vulnerable years. The initial 5 years of a child's life are the most vulnerable. That's where the child is probably prone to dying, and
Yeah.
and a tribe not moving on eventually. That
Mm-hmm.
basic instinct of the tribe moving on is always there. That's just human. That's just back somewhere in the lizard brain. That's there in every
Mm-hmm.
animal, that we want to reproduce. We want to keep reproducing, and we want to see our children and their children and their children, and we want to see our, basically, again, we are tribe keeps going on
Mm-hmm.
even when we die. We
Mm-hmm.
believe that some part of us lives on as we die. I think that's a very basic instinct that's there in our life. So yeah, child rearing was sure work. Just that we didn't have that categorization at the time, probably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, makes sense. So I think perhaps if I can organize some of these ideas, it's
Yes,
there
yes.
is a survival issue, physical,
Hmm.
like one category would be physical survival, which requires us food and
Right.
security from being hunted. And then there is the social survival, which requires maintaining the tribe. So this could mean child rearing, or taking care of the pregnant, or taking care of the ill, or taking care of the old. So that's survival, the social survival. And then there would be, I'm guessing, something equivalent of what led to culture, like the singing, the dancing, the rituals, all of these things. So while I think it may be a little weird to put it in work, I would say that would be the tribal equivalent of following your passion. Because if somebody wants to sing and dance and walk around the woods and explore the river, or who knows, gaze at the stars, it doesn't matter whether it makes money or it is productive. It would be the idea of following your passion. So do you think we should have a category of that kind?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that you bring that up. Yes, I believe so. And I also think that at the time, everybody would do that. Everybody would gather around a tribe, and they would dance, and they would sing, and they would play with each other, and they would gaze at the stars. There wasn't a distinction that this section of society is supposed to dance and this section of society is supposed to make money and and just sit in cubicles all day long. Everybody did everything. There was no social categorization. And humans themselves didn't think so deeply, probably, and they didn't. Even if they did think deeply, they didn't categorize themselves as somebody who would, oh no, I am not a dancer. I'm just a hunter. I'll go out and make catch the food, and these people should dance at night to entertain me. That's not how it worked. Everybody did everything. Is what I understand by it, and it probably in some ways it was a much more full life. It wasn't as dry perhaps, or as challenging. It was challenging, sorry, but it wasn't as monodimensional is the word I want to use. As
So
today.
if I like that word. So, and if I'm understanding that correctly, the analogy or the thread that you're drawing from the life of the hunter-gatherer, our ancestors, versus the life that you had just a few months back, is that your life a few months back was very monodimensional, because out of the 4 categories of work that we just discussed, you were very much focused on the first 2, that is your physical survival, in a manner of earning money to get food or other essentials, and earning money to make sure that you have enough what you would call roti kapda makan,
physical security, basically.
Right.
Basically, Maslow's hierarchy. I was focused on the bottom 2, probably.
And you didn't have enough time to spend on the other 2. That is, survival of your family, or tribe, essentially, and following your passion, or like having time to do things that you would like to do or explore.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. And so let's bring it back. What you are suggesting is your situation has now changed. Your situation has now changed in the sense that you found more balance. You don't earn probably as much as you used to. But the freedom that you've received in terms of not having to work 60 or 80 hours a week or more is that you now have time to do the other aspects of human activity, or what we are calling as the different categories of work. Your aspiration is that everybody has that kind of a balance. So let's move forward. Perhaps let's move forward.
Okay.
You're telling me that hunter and gatherers had that.
Yes.
What changed?
At some level, they did have it. So let's move on. And the next phase that I briefly want to touch upon is the agricultural age. I think a lot of humanity changed when agriculture came in. It is the idea of that we could store work, basically. We didn't have to go and look for food every day. Instead, we could farm food, and then we could store it, and then we could eat it for a long period of time, and that fundamentally changed how humans lived. Hunter gatherers used to pack up and leave their locations very frequently, but agriculturists, the farmers, is what established settlements and then villages and then cities and then kingdoms. Agriculture is what led us to become grounded and become settled. Probably as these days they call it, they settle down into particular physical locations, regions, and that allowed us to grow a lot more as well. With food security, we could live longer. Instead of tribes of 40-50 people, we could live in settlements of 400-500 people. Cities of thousands of people could be formed around these rivers and these agricultural farmlands that we were able to come up with. So that was like a fundamental shift in how we lived as individuals as well as a society. And I think our nature of work also changed accordingly. We didn't need as many hunters. We needed more farmers. We needed more physical security, but in different ways. We needed security from animals, animals taking over our fields. So we needed to build fences, and then we needed other types of work, probably, somebody to build houses, somebody to build tools, masonry, carpentry probably came into being at the time. Everything became more, more specialized probably in terms of work, and like less of one person doing many things. Instead of it became more structured, I would imagine. Like, what do you think of that time?
So that makes sense. So, and if I'm following your logic here, is the hunter and gatherers actually had good work-life balance, right? So they had a good balance on how much time they spent on hunting and making sure that they're secure, as well as child rearing, as well as fun activities, singing, dancing.
Yeah.
But the problem was not that their life was not balanced, but the problem was that their food was uncertain. So
Yes.
just because they could have a balanced life does not mean that they did have a balanced life, because there could be uncertainty in the food wars, and
Yes.
what you are pushing towards is that is what led to agriculture, or put differently, the feature of having security of food through
Yes.
storage, or through certainty of the cycles at which a different food will grow and be available, made agriculture more lucrative, and there was mass adoption.
Right.
And as this happened, as a natural consequence of that was also the idea of specialization. Now,
Yes.
not everybody needed to. So there was some level of specialization, perhaps in the past,
Of
that
course.
some people were focused on child rearing, and others were focused on hunting, but it wasn't as much. Everybody was involved in
Yes.
most of activities. Now
Yes.
you're saying that the job of securing the borders of your kingdom
Yes.
could be separated from the job of growing crops.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The thing, so that makes sense to me.
Okay. Good.
Does this also come with the idea of, are we still maintaining the balance, or are we starting to lose the balance at the agricultural age?
Yeah, depends
think
on
that
what
has happened?
balance. Yeah, depends on what balance you want to talk about. Socially, this makes perfect balance for a society. Specialization of labor is big for a society, but at an individual level, I think we're starting to lose that balance now, where we don't have enough time, because just the act of growing, or the act of farming can be very, very taxing and time consuming, definitely more time consuming on a day-to-day basis than probably a hunting and gathering. Or I also want to touch upon the fact that by this time, as we are creating more, we started to consume a lot more as well. We don't actually need probably those calories that we are creating so many. Just because there are so many more calories, we are consuming more and more calories. If you want to measure our work in calorie terms, that is right. we're able to store more calories, and then we're starting to consume more calories as well at this point.
Is it
But
because it is
which can
easily
actually lead
available?
to
Is it because they
easily
are easily available? Now that we have a store of them, they are easily
Yes.
available.
the cost of production is way down now. And probably this might actually be also one of the reasons for why we started to live way much longer. Our average lifespan increased a lot at this point, and which because of stable food and stable physical security, we can live much longer. As society, our average age grew, but then again, that means that we have more people to feed, so we have to create more. Because people aren't dying quickly enough as they are in the tribal days. So
And
now
I'm also assuming there is
we've
a
got to feed.
population explosion because there is so much more certainty and safety. There's also a population explosion. So
Yes.
that's fantastic. So let's boil that back down again and think of it as with the agricultural age, there came certainty in food production.
Yes.
The primitive farmer got the benefits of having certainty of food. Now they could store up to 10 days of food, or maybe a month of food, or maybe a season worth of food for winter. And they probably had enough time to enjoy the rituals and all of these things. But what this led to, just following the thread of causality, is we had a longer lifespan, we had a population explosion, which means now the same farmer is burdened with growing more food for the entire population.
Yes.
And that perhaps leads to the idea that because you're specialized as a farmer, or you're specialized for doing certain types of jobs, so it is now a compounding cycle, a feedback cycle, which is only going upwards, which means that more food and more specialization, more success and more innovation in their specialized things, more people, more things, more. So this is like, I think it would be fair to say, to pull this thread of the compounding effects of innovation and productivity from the agricultural age to the industrial age, we just now have more specialized different things which help us be more efficient.
Yes.
But it has not reduced the amount of work that is expected out of every specialized person.
Yes.
Because, so I think that is the piece that is still missing.
Probably because we are consuming a lot more. In one way or the other, we're consuming a lot more of the planet, as I like to keep saying. That in the hunter-gatherer days, our impact on the planet was very limited, But as we become more civilized and, as society becomes more structured, as we're that loop keeps going. As we create more, we consume more, and and what are we consuming? Ultimately, what are we consuming? At a very basic level, we're consuming something of the planet, right? So that's where the cost is going, I believe. Plus the social aspect, the individual aspect of it is always there's always that pressure to create more. That pressure. If I'm a farmer, then of course I have to create a lot more of food. If I'm a savior, sort of the defender of the society, then I've got more pressure to put in more hours of work every day, because there are more people to defend now. There are more people. There are more people who are in danger because who are young or who are too old. And like,
or there are wars between.
There are more wars.
Right.
There are more tribes. The more tribes there are, the more wars there will be. Eventually, right? Because what do humans do? We fight.
I think I was initially not sure where you were going with the idea of we are consuming the planet, and like, I understand the sustainability angle, but I wasn't sure why it was how it played a role in our idea of work. But this piece of, as the tribes are growing, they are growing in a finite resource place, and that leads to more wars, and that leads to more negotiation and figuring out. It could mean like a war, or it could mean like you have small skirmishes, but ultimately more people are employed in work that is related to either growing food or physical safety. there is some amount of work that has always been reserved for making sure that your tribe is growing, which is child rearing
Yes.
and taking
Yes.
care of your
Yes.
elders.
Yes.
And there is some amount of work that is happening in the culture space.
Yes.
But those two seems to me like are
Yes.
the fungible space, because unless you have the layer one of work happening at the tribe level, we have enough food and
Yeah.
security,
Yeah.
you don't, overflow time on the upper layer.
Exactly.
But an interesting thing is now happening. So this is great. So we've
Yeah.
brought it down to that we've progressed over the years, but we've lost our balance, and that is purely coming from we were first now hunting for more food security and physical security,
Yeah. Yeah.
growing population, limited resources.
Yeah.
But now we are in a place where we are stuck in this compounding loop.
Yes.
So let's come to sort of like essentially much closer to present time.
Yeah. Of course.
Up until now, we are still focused on all humans being essentially similar. So while they're specialized, they are essentially similar in the sense that most of their time is spent in the first two categories of work.
Yes.
But we are also seeing a lot of compounding happening, which leads me to think about, if you think capitalism as a philosophy or socialism as a philosophy, there has to be some concentration of power, which is like if you're able to
Yes.
store food, the person who has control over the distribution of food.
Yes.
And as we come to industrial age,
Yeah.
any rare resource, gold or money, if you are able to store them and compound them, the person who has power over those things, it could be a state or it could be a billionaire, like wherever you draw your philosophical lines. But the idea of the distribution of resources, there is some power. I'm starting to see that now we cannot treat all humans in the same broad category that they're spending all of their time or most of their time in this.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say that there are two distinct classes. One are the people who have power on these stored resources. They are very likely to get more returns on
Yeah.
their work,
Yeah.
versus people who are more focused on building these resources or generating these resources.
Yes.
Seems to me that, and feel free to poke holes in this. It seems to me that what you've essentially done over the past few months is change your, for the lack of a better word, class. You were in this class, worker class, and now you are in this class, the distributor class. It's not that you are not working, but your work is not, if you were a farmer, the food you are generating is not getting stored under somebody else's power of distribution.
Yes.
It's getting stored under your own power of distribution. So you own your own, assets, in a manner of speaking. So what you've done is you've made a switch from the worker class to this class.
The owner
And what
class.
to the owner class. Yeah, that seems like a really nice word. So like the worker class who works to maintain the first two, physical security and these things, but has to spend a lot of their time doing that because you have to hit the minimum threshold. And unfortunately, that does not leave enough time for house, tribe maintenance, family maintenance, as well as pursuing work for the fun of it, singing and dancing. The owner class, because they get non-linear returns on their physical work, on their initial work, they have much more leverage or much more time remaining for the other thing, and that is what you're experiencing.
Yes.
Awesome. So this is great. So now tell me more. If we are now to, like, in this context of conversation, simplify the problem, we are coming at and suggesting that we want most people to move from the worker class to the owner class.
Yes.
And reframing the question that I had initially, that this exciting and essentially noble idea that everybody should be an owner,
Yeah.
I am questioning the validity of that, given how we've just figured out what is the value of the worker class. Is it even possible that you can have 95% of the world in the owner class, right? And you know, I don't want to stop you right here. Like I think you want to carry forward and think about the knowledge age in which we are currently in, which has allowed us to do much more things, right? Like
Yes.
so tell me more that it is now. Tell me more about. I think what I sense is in the knowledge age, it is now possible for more people to make that jump into
I
the
think-
owner class.
I think that's the point of innovation or human innovation. If I just like take 1 minute to speak on the owner aspect of it, back in the hunter gatherer, there was just one owner as a tribe leader. And everyone followed him, and whatever he did or said, that happened to the tribe. During the agricultural age, basically the tribe leaders became the kings, of the kingdoms, because they could provide physical security. So kings controlled everything, and everybody grabbed the power. Concentration of power was in the king's courtroom, right? And then as we move on with more innovation, with the industrial age, with mechanization of power, we're able to create entrepreneurs. People like Henry Ford, people who are building factories and not building armies. They're building factories who are probably supplying to the armies. That's a different matter. But they're able to concentrate a lot of power, a lot of capital, financial capital, human capital, social capital into an organization and build leverage. You use the word leverage, and build leverage for themselves. Which again gives them a lot of power in a certain way, where they're able to store work, and their work can go on, can live on for so much that the Henry Ford Foundation lives on even for today. Even after like so many years that he has passed on and he's passed away, but his name lives on, as they say. That is how I think about ownership, and then coming to the knowledge age, the internet has just given us, all of us, the power to become owners. We can have our own little shops, probably internet shops, where we can leverage the power of the of the internet, infinite reproducibility, zero marginal cost of distribution of our work, which basically means that we can all have that kind of power. We can all be entrepreneurs, we can all be owners. We don't have to be followers, or we don't have to be workers with minimum leverage. We can, whatever work we're doing, we can do it for so much more leverage. Is how I think about it.
So that's quite fantastic. I think I clearly jumped over some hoops, and you did a good job of slowing it down and explaining the mechanics of ownership, like how leverage grows, and connecting it back to the main thread of our conversation. The owner class is, through the mechanics that you just explained, the owner class is able to buy back time.
Yes.
Buy back time, not just to do what they like to do, but also, I think what you're getting at is, in the knowledge age, they are, with the internet, they are now able to, like, if they're good at singing and dancing, or if they like doing singing and dancing, they get good enough at it and make that into a owner business, such that they don't have to spend as much time doing like the low leverage work.
Yes.
So I think that's fantastic. I think you laid it out very well. The piece that I want to really push against. So as an individual story, like if you were to think of it, of this story as a first person hero's journey perspective, that is fantastic. And that's part of the reason, like, I really find your move so inspiring and so like thrilling, that you made that move. You not only understood what kept you there and what was not working. Many people understand what is not working, but you found a way to, while doing A, bootstrap into B, and you're more than half the way easily transitioning into being a full-time complete owner,
Yep. Yep.
and like not just having assets but having assets enough so that there is more time to spare
Yes.
on
Yes.
other types of activities. So
Yes.
while I really like that thing, I want to push us to think in not in terms of the first person perspective, but in terms of the perspective of a society. What you want is everybody having that kind of a thing, right? With the internet,
Yes.
it is possible.
Yes.
My question is, with the internet, it is possible because what I'm hearing from you is a single person can figure out and do it. But I want you to take a systems perspective, which is think about an ecosystem like a jungle.
Sure.
The number of foxes eat rabbits and rabbits eat grass, those kinds of things. So if there are more rabbits, the population of foxes will grow up because there is abundant food. But if the foxes eat too many rabbits, then they'll starve and go out. So there is a balance in every ecosystem. And if we come out of the hero's perspective, first person perspective,
Sure.
and take the perspective of the society, you're saying that there are these two classes, worker class and the owner class.
Yeah.
You're saying that everybody should move from this class to from the worker class to the owner class by bootstrapping, by building your own assets. With the internet, this is more possible than any time in the past before. And within a few years of work, you now can have more ownership of your time. I love that story.
Yes.
The piece that bugs me, being a system scientist, is I don't see a society where you can have 100% owners in the current regime of things. And let me bring it back to the way we built out this world. The worker class partially was working because it was focused on generating resources which are required for physical sustenance and physical security. The owner class, the way we have currently described it, thrives on not just generating resources, but generating resources that are not necessarily essential resources. So singing and dancing is great, but if 90% of your population is doing singing and dancing, then one of two things have to happen. The 10% of the people who are growing food for all of the 100% of the population should get paid a very high premium so that they continue to do so.
Yes.
Or the population starts to dwindle down.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So the two pieces that we built up from the beginning are sort of like essential on which the society resides.
Exactly. I think we're still natural beings. Even if there's the internet, we can't all live in the metaverse, literally. Right? We have to eat real food grown in real fields and real farms. So yes, I agree. There has to be some part of the population who has to still keep doing that work of growing the food, of maintaining the physical security. We need soldiers, we need farmers, and probably I want to imagine that at some point in our future, we will become a society that that gives these two classes of people the most bang for their buck. The most buck for their hour. Probably, people and doctors again, because they keep our survival going. So these roles in society, as everyone realizes that making a business on the internet is so easy, everyone will flock to that over the next few years. And then there'll be a crunch, there'll be a shortage of people who are actually doing the essential work in the physical world. And there'll be a premium to doing that then. That if you're able to do essential work, then you should be probably paid way more in society than you are being paid right now. At least that's how I want to look at it. Think about it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a farmer.
Let me be very brutally realistic here.
Sure.
Poke a big hole in that. What I'm hearing from you is a lot of dream scenarios, but the reality is that the pandemic just proved how we treat our essential workers, be it doctors, be it people who
Yes.
drive people around or do clean sewage. Like the essential work
Yes.
and the workers are not highly paid.
Yes.
They are celebrated but not given the means to do, and they
Yes.
continue to remain in the worker class. So
Yes.
what that project, so like while I really like the utopian vision that the essential workers should get paid more, like a premium hourly wage and not
Yes.
just a minimum wage. So we are not talking about increasing the minimum wage for essential
No,
work.
no,
We are talking
no,
about
no.
having a premium wage for essential work,
Yes.
so that the rest of the society has the time and capacity to pursue their things and earn a living while doing singing and dancing, and,
Yes.
generating
Yes.
income
Yes.
through ownership
Yes.
model.
Yes. Yes.
The other piece that like the stark reality, which is like there are two pathways here. Like one is this end of the continuum, the other end of the continuum is the society can continue
Yeah.
i- i- like using unsavory terms essentially to
Sure.
keep the worker class as slaves, because as long as the worker class
Yeah.
cannot meet their essential demands of food and security, they really have no other means to escape that grind. So, put differently, we are in a phase in which there is a race. So, I'm taking the negative spin here. We are in a race of how many people can escape from the worker class to the owner class. Because as the proportion of these two classes shifts towards ownership, the worker class, or the work or the day of a worker class, or the life situation of a worker class, are going to become more and more dire, not more and more premium, because they will suddenly have lesser capacity and lesser space to jump into and make their own place, right? Because they're now being forced into continue to work on XYZ. So this is and I'm not saying this is what is going to happen. What I'm saying is these are the two edge cases, and
Yes.
we'll probably be somewhere in the middle.
Agreed.
And do so a good way to ask, and like perhaps like I look at the time and I know we are closing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
end. A good way to a good place to stop would be to think about what are the social rules that would lead us to one, leaning in one direction versus the other.
Yes. Yes.
Part one of the question. And part two of the question, so like we can discuss things like UBI and all of those things, or technology will
yes,
save
yes.
us, right? Like the
Yes.
two dominant arguments that innovation will out innovate these problems, and
Yes.
second one will create UBI and those kinds of things. But perhaps next time we can also spend some time in again doing an exercise from first principles, that
Yes.
we know what work looks like, we know what the distribution should be. What would an ideal society look like if it did not have the baggage of the history that we have?
Yes.
I would really like that kind of a conversation next time.
Yes.
uh,
Yeah. I think
on
we're,
both of these aspects.
Yeah, we're already over time, but yeah, just to conclude on it, I love that we are able to come to this point of the owner class and the worker class. I just think if the people run on incentives, incentive of the owner class is probably to remain owners and to to keep the worker class the way it is, and that has emerged. So that's scary to me. That's very scary to me. And plus, there has a new class has emerged. Called the political class is what I want to call, without getting too political or too negative, which in theory emerged from the worker class, but has become the owner class in a way. Basically, politicians rule us, right? They're literally ruling us, but they're supposed to be representatives of the people on the ground. They're supposed to be workers. But they have gone over, and they are basically exploiting in a way. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too political, but I think we don't need that class as much. If we just had more entrepreneurs and more owners of assets, we would be able to figure this out. But yeah, I see where you're coming from and where the negative side of it is and how bad it can go. Probably in the next episode we can look at both the aspects of how bad and how good it can go, and what changes will need to happen right now today for the good things, for a good future, for a utopic ideal future that I want to have.
No, that's excellent. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack in the political class argument.
Yes.
Let's begin with that next time, and
Yes,
then
yes.
go into the other building the ideal world situation
Yes.
and figure out how
Yes,
it goes.
yes.
This was
Yes,
quite fun,
definitely.
Ayush.
Lot of fun, Pranav. Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes.
And see you next time. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
See ya.